Contract Friday.
Bill, you and I talked last night, and we were having a lot of guys. Let's just have this conversation again. I started on Tuesday, but I'm going to do it again.
All right.
Yesterday at the Apollo Beach office, we had a little Valentine's Day get together, and I talked with a lot of agents who were, I don't want to say stressed out, but I want to say stressed.
Yeah.
We talked about multiple offers and telling customers, sorry, you didn't win. And it's actually harder now than it was before the great market that we're in. And I want to appreciate the great market that we're in, but my God, it's hard. And the customers say, oh, you're so lucky being real estate. It's so easy right now. No, it's not. It's harder now than it was before.
Yeah.
And as your broker, I want to have a conversation with you about managing the stress level, because the stress level is high, right? So what do you do when your stress level is high?
Go for long walks and drink. You and I talked about it. You do have to set aside time for yourself, turn off the phone, and do something you want to do. This is tough. This reminds me of 2005 when the escalation clause first came into use. At least that's kind of when I started in real estate in 03 or 04. So we started using the escalation clause, and it was a tough market. There were often times you were writing 3 and 4 offers for somebody until you could get one to stick. And a lot of it was educating the buyer to understand that you're going to have to give up some things that you would normally have in a contract, like a 10-day inspection period. Maybe now it's only 5, or maybe none, or you're going to have to make your best offer that you can make and hope that you get it.
Right.
We talked the other day, I had 35 offers on a house that I bid on Saturday. Unfortunately, my people didn't have cash, and the person who won had cash. So, cash is king most of the time. So we are finding some issues. We had a discussion yesterday of you use an escalation clause and some of the other agents don't know what it is. And that's a good point to bring up when you're putting in an offer with an escalation clause, that the other agent understands it. Because you don't know the experience level on the other side of the fence unless you looked them up in the MLS to see they only have ever written 2 offers and gotten 2 houses or something, that they understand, what the escalation clause is and how it works.
Well, now I'm hearing that escalation clauses with no caps are beating escalation clauses with caps. Who's to say? And you're messing with a market where appraisals basically have no merit. My point that I'm trying to make is it's stressful. So you start doing things. You need to sleep well. You probably need to drink less. You probably need to exercise more to burn off the anxiety that's coming from the efforts if you're working. The people I talked to yesterday, Laura has 12 pending contracts. That's a lot. To manage 12 pending contracts at any point in time.
Yeah.
You're looking at a 50, 60, 70 deal a year, single person, no team business level. That is hard work. And then add in the fact you're a mom and a husband and you get 2 children and oh my God, it's a lot. So my point is for everybody, start taking time right now.
Yeah, the activity level we're seeing right now is May, June activity level as far as level of activity. We don't normally see this kind of activity in January and February. And so it's sort of like, it doesn't matter what month it is right now, we're hunting. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody. It's a challenge for listing agents. What the hell do you do with 32 offers?
You piss off 31 people.
Exactly.
And some people don't like to do that.
And sometimes there's a little power thing going on that you got to deal with on the listing agent side. And understand, I texted the listing agent the other day. I said, listen, I know you're getting bombarded. I just want to let you know I submitted an offer. Just tell me that you got it. All right. And she texted back and said, thank you so much. She goes, my phone is blowing up. And, there's a little bit of pressure on the listing agent part, because now all of a sudden you have to look at 35 offers. And really after 10, what is it? You got 10 offers at one particular level. How do you sort that out?
Well, that's our topic for today, which we can go to a form in a little bit. But
Yeah.
my point is for our agents to, if you are one of those who are engaged and working, you're busy. Just flat out busy. And it's time to take care of yourself, because stress is a dangerous, dangerous thing. So the pause and reflect, take time for yourself, meditate, yoga, whatever it is, make time for yourself to have some quiet time, because it's just not, trust me, it's going to build and it's going to build, and you're going to break at some point.
Right.
So this is, what's happening in my world right now is greed. I've been sampling the real estate market plan with that Mirror Bay project, and the seller is a psychotic, greedy SOB. And he's basically just changing all the rules on his own terms with no regard to anybody's feelings or emotions, with no morality, no anything. And it's actually disgusting to me, and I'm resigning from the project. But the market is crazy. And houses are just going up in insane levels, and it is what it is. But my point to you, don't take
stress out. You're right, Deborah.
It's hard not to,
Yeah.
because, and understand, people are going to act really differently now because of the stress they're under too.
Right.
There's a lot of emotions that are going to be flying, and it's just, I'm just telling you, I know this has happened before. It's going to happen again, and we as agents are going to be the recipients of the blame, and that's not it's not your fault.
No.
You need to keep a clear and calm mind. So anyway, all that, besides that, it's friggin' awesome out there. Right? We get some listings. I'm pretty sure by Tuesday when I report sales meeting, we're going to be under 200 listings as a company now, which is scary. Because
I got one coming on today, Craig, so we can add one.
Yeah, but it's going to go under contract, Joe, so we don't add it. Right?
Yeah, it'll be 2 days and it'll be under contract, probably.
I'll share my screen for 30 seconds and show you one of the topics I had to share today. Oh, isn't that nice? Look at my email so far this morning. Yay.
There you go.
I shared the hot sheet today. This is problematic. Here it is. 20 deals went under contract, 4 new listings. Chances are 10 of those deals that went under contract were our listings, and we got 4 new ones. And of the 4 new ones, 3 of them are going to be sold in the next 2 days. So we went down 20 and we went up 4. All right, that's the market we're in right now. So if you have any, look at this, 20, that's what I want to show you, 24. We added 20 new sales. We took 20 houses off the market. We, as a little company, a little microcosm of the world, we took 20 properties off the market and we added 4 to the market.
Right.
It's challenging, and it's going to continue to be challenging. So and I talked to some agents yesterday that were going, they've got a bunch of listings lined up to come on the market. When you get a bunch of listings lined up to come on the market, just be prepared. Now you're going to have multiple offers. So Joe, you shared with me yesterday a form that you created.
Yes.
That I think we should share with the group right now.
I think we should, but definitely.
Is it on my screen, or do you want me to share?
You can share it. I didn't pull it up this morning.
I have it, so that's good. And I will just make fun of Joe, who's an MBA and can't spell. So I'm not gonna make fun of the typos as we see them.
Thank God for spell check. And sometimes it doesn't work.
No, it missed a lot on this one, but it's okay.
All right. Well, we'll go back and correct it.
Am I sharing my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, so we're going to share my screen. Yeah, Lauren says, start the day with yoga and meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Looking forward to that when I don't have a contractor in my backyard every day. Okay, so share screen. Boom. Okay, so I'm going to presume, Joe, that everybody knows the contracts that we deal with, the FAR bar and the FAR bar as.
Correct.
And you did an excellent job of is categorizing which, this is Contract Friday, so
Right.
Friday, you don't know it's Friday. Categorizing which contracts you're looking at and what are the really important things to compare when you have multiple offers looking at each other.
Right.
So why don't you take it and go? So paragraphs 1 through 8 are pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, paragraphs 1 through 8 on both contracts are exactly the same. So that helps us, right? Then we get to paragraph 9 for closing costs. Now, paragraph 9 in the as-is contract basically says, here are the things that buyer and seller are paying. But in the regular FAR bar contract, that's where you start adding your repair limits, and then maintenance requirements are basically the same in both contracts. The seller is required to maintain the property, the level in which the buyer saw it on the day they purchased it. So that's a big thing when you're looking at the two contracts, because basically the as-is contract says we're not fixing anything, right? It's as is. It's the way it is. And the other one, you're coming up with repair limits. So in a multiple offer situation, you might want to put 0 in those slots, or or a very low amount, right?
Well, let's add to that, because I think, my opinion. I think the regular contract is more powerful than the as-is contract.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? But you can make a regular contract as meaningful to a, I don't want to say less intelligent, but
Right.
less intelligent agent by putting 0, 0, 0, right? Because you're going to protect your buyer. So what are the things that are crucial in an as-is contract that affect the buyer? And I'm speaking mostly about permits.
Yes. So when you get to permits and government, the buyer is actually required in an as-is contract to close them all. It's not up to the seller to close them. It's not up to the seller to, if you want the HVAC looked at or the roof looked at, that's up to the buyer to do. The buyer has to do all their inspections. They're on the buyer. And we're in the regular contract when we have repairs and we send our list over, it's the seller's obligation to get estimates. In the as-is contract, it's up to the buyer to get everything done within that 7 or 10 days, whatever they put out. So whatever they put down on there. So it really, if I'm looking at it as a seller, to me, the regular FAR bar is a better contract for me because it keeps them in the contract with the, limited repair limits. It tells me exactly what repairs have to be done, or warranted, I should say, right? Whereas in the as-is contract, man, the buyer can send over anything. I don't like the nail pops in the living room and all that kind of stuff. So the regular contract keeps you more in line, but it doesn't let the buyer out. I sat and sent in a competitive offer. I sent a regular FAR bar contract and called the listing agent. I said, I didn't send you an as-is, I sent you a FAR bar. And the reason I did that is so we're not walking away.
Right.
And she
hold my feet to the fire.
Yeah, she goes, wow. She goes, I don't usually get strong offers like that. So, but sometimes you have to explain to them why that contract is a stronger offer, because there's very limited ways a buyer can get out of the regular FAR bar contract. They just can't walk, all right, where they can in the as-is.
Well, I was talking to Chris yesterday, and we have a new agent who got a new listing on a street that's very popular, and
Mhm.
a contract very quickly with an agent who's very well known in town. And, 4 days after the inspection period, they just canceled
Yeah.
because another house came on the market and they chose that one instead.
Mhm.
So in that situation, with a regular contract, they would have had to have invested the money in a real inspection,
Right.
would have named legitimate problems, and the
Right.
seller would have to fix those problems. And if they didn't fix them, then the buyer could walk,
Correct.
or the seller could opt to fix them.
Right.
In the case as is, the buyer just walked and said, "Sorry, I came out at midnight and the moon was askant to the roof line, and I didn't feel good about it, so I'm canceling."
Yeah, but
That's all you need to say.
think about how that appears online, because the first question I ask when I see a house now on the market for 9 days and I look at the history and went on and off the market in a few days, the first question I'm asking the listing agent is,
Why?
why? Why did that happen? And I had one recently where they just decided they didn't want it after six days. And it really did take a toll on the listing. It took us another few weeks to get it back under contract because it was during the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, so we were in that time period. So,
Well, Nancy Conley just wrote in and said most listing agents are asking for as-is contracts.
they are, mm-hmm. But they don't realize, you can make the regular FAR bar and as is by putting zeros in the repair limits, right? You can say, hey, but it's a strong contract. It means I'm not walking away because I don't like the color paint on one of the bedrooms, or as you say, Craig, hey, another one came on the market and I'll like it better.
Because the seller has some control and can say, hey, no problem, I'll fix that. You're saying
Right.
it's not. Oh, you don't like this? No problem. The seller has the option to make the repair. The option, not the obligation.
Right.
The option.
I mean,
you don't like the nail pops in the living room? No problem. I'll fix that. You're staying in contract.
Right. And the regular contract does give you a list of things that are warranted, but that doesn't mean the seller can't fix other things if asked.
Right.
Okay.
It's just a meaningful conversation to have.
Right.
And I personally recommend the regular contract, even if you had $100 as the repair limits for wood destroying organisms, maintenance items, and permits.
Right.
Because, Joe, in my opinion, all these things are moot because if you actually did the certified pre-lived home concept before you put it on the market, you're going to find out what's wrong.
Right.
You really are.
Yeah. I mean, any home that I have that's been a single owner for more than 10 years, I just had one, okay? And the list, I sold in the house 10 years ago and I said, we're gonna have the inspector come over because I could tell they hadn't fixed a thing since they moved in there. And the inspector gave them a list of things, to fix before we go on the market.
Well, let's talk about this too. So a neighbor of mine is gonna sell her house. Her husband just died. And she reached out to me, which is nice. And I'm going to coach her through this process. And the one thing I know, because I went over to her house, is her seawall shot.
Oh, okay.
Right. And I mean, you can tell it's a wood seawall. And when the 6x6 post hits the ground, it's gone. Right. So I sent my seawall guy over and he gave me an evaluation. Says, Craig, I got to tell you, the seawall shot. It's 120 feet of waterfront. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful house, maybe $1.5 million, close to $1.5 million. And the seawall shot, and it's going to need to be fixed. And there's no way a buyer of that level of house, or any house for that matter, is going to get a seawall inspection.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to say the seawall needs to be replaced, and it does. So 120 feet of seawall at about $300 a foot to replace a PVC seawall with a concrete cap. What's that? $36,000, right? So the house is $1.3 million. She says, well, do I have to fix it? And I said, no, you don't have to fix it. But we're going to disclose that it needs a new seawall, and we're going to price it like it has a new seawall. And we're going to give the buyer credit for $36,000 for a new seawall. Because a lot of buyers, even at that price range, don't have $36,000 sitting around idle to put a
No.
new seawall in. But when they close on the house, they're going to walk away from closing with $36,000, which they can then put a new seawall with, right? So the ideal situation is to pay the $36,000, fix the seawall, sell the house with a new seawall. But what's that going to entail? Getting a permit, which is going to take 2 or 3 months. The seawall is not imminent. It's not going to break, but it needs to be replaced. So we decided we're going to give a credit of $36,000 for, and along with a bid. Hey, here's the seawall company that's going to replace the seawall. Here's their estimate, and we're going to give you $36,000 in closing. So when you buy my house, you're going to get $36,000 for your seawall repair.
And you can go repair it and use the people you want.
Or you can buy 2 jet skis for all I give a shit. I don't care.
That's right.
The seawall is probably going to last another 2 or 3 years before something major happens. But if it happens, it's going to be ugly because the pool sits 5 feet away from the seawall.
Right.
And if it loses integrity, it's not going to be good. So we will address those things, and there's ways to handle them, and that's what you find out.
So the real strength between in the regular FAR contract really holds the seller into fixing certain things, but in the as-is contract, most people using it don't understand that the buyer is responsible for closing all these permits if there's any open. The buyer is responsible for doing all their inspections within a certain amount of time and paying for it. It's not the seller is obliged to help them, like if they need a roofer to come out to let the roofer in to look at the roof, but they're not obligated to get all that stuff done. And that's huge between the 2 contracts.
And I'm saying, okay, so I've been a broker now for 30 something years. And I supervise over 50,000 transactions. And over 30 years, I've come to realize that houses that are older need special attention, right? Like my daughter bought a house, I forget what year it was built, it was in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And she's having plumbing problems. Well, back in the 60s, they used galvanized pipe. And when you take a metal pipe and you stick it in the dirt, moist dirt, for 50 years, what happens?
Eventually they corrode.
It corrodes, right? And then when it corrodes, it's like your arteries. It constricts. The rust expands and the line shrinks and your toilets don't flush. And it's not a huge deal, but you got to replace the sewage line that goes from the house to the street.
Yeah.
The problem is that the sewer line also goes under the slab of your house that connects to your toilets. So in order to get to that pipe, you got to rip up the floor, which means you got to rip up the tile, which means you got to rip up the carpet or whatever else is down there to get to the pipe. And it becomes a $30,000 or $40,000 experience to fix those problems. So buyers, as buyers agents, need to tell our buyers, it's not the home inspector spending $400 or charging $400 to inspect the visual components of the house.
Right.
You need to hire a plumber to come out with a scope and a camera to send a thing up the pipe to see what it looks like on the inside. And that's going to cost $300 or $400. And then you need to hire, whatever else you need, but you need to hire an AC guy to pressure test the coils, because the seller might have just pumped some Freon in there and make it look like it's working fine. But if there's a leak in the coils, you're going to need a new AC, right? So having these conversations is important, and knowing the limits of the contract, I just think is paramount to our success and our viability as a real estate agent going into the future. Right. So all I want to do is expose our agents to the opportunities and the challenges that come so you can address them head up. Mm-hmm. I am dealing with some shit right now that I am not proud of. Jan wrote, so if a seller knows that there are no permits for redoing a pool, e.g. editor request regular, not an as-is contract. Yes. If you suspect that there's a permit problem, use a regular contract, not an as-is, because the seller has to participate.
Yeah, the seller is obligated, right in the contract, it said, when they sign it, it says the seller knows that everything's been permitted and there's no problem with government liens against the property or anything like that. So you're more protected. You know, when you have open permits under the as-is contract, it's the buyer responsibility to close them and pay for anything. All right, so they put in a new AC 5 years ago. There's no permit to close it. Guess what? The buyer is paying to close that in an as-is contract. Now, the nice thing, Craig, most agents don't know this when you're dealing with them. All right, but I mean, it's right in the contract. And I've had to, you know, point that out to some people from time to time that, you know, go close it. Something's open, go close it.
Joe just wrote in, with the as is, we still deal with agents who add inspection contingency releases with a list of repairs.
Sure.
That you do. I like our additional terms paragraph for all offers also. So it's almost worth showing this to you guys. Okay, so I'll show that in a second. So anyway, in dot loop, under the additional terms paragraph, there's a clause that says this as is contract is for buyer's informational purposes only. Any attempt to request repairs will give the seller the right to cancel the contract, because when you wrote an as is offer, you said as is. So I made my decision to accept your offer based on the fact that it's as is. I don't have to do anything, right?
And especially not necessarily in this market where things are going overpriced, but let's just say in a not so hot market where you have, you know, had a price say at 350 and came down to 335 because you got an as-is contract, and now, you know, now they want to throw in repairs, and you know, I've had to explain to buyers agents, we've already negotiated repairs. You gave me an as-is contract and I said, there are no repairs. So we've already negotiated repairs with you. It's as is, you know, so.
Well, I just bought the house and I bought it as is. And there was a couple of stupid little things that were problems. And my agent was my daughter, and she went to the seller and actually got $1,000 off because some stupid little things weren't done. Which was nice. I wasn't expecting it, but I was glad to get it. Made my closing costs less.
Yes.
But that agent, I would have bought the house either way. That was just good agenting on my daughter's side. Pamela says, so in the scenario of the plumbing, how do I protect my buyer under the regular versus as is? Okay, well, that's really a simple question. So if it's an as is contract and you detect a plumbing problem, then the plumbing problem's on you, on your buyer. They have to fix it. Under a regular contract with the repair limits, the seller would be obligated to pay up to the repair limit of that problem, right? So ideally, I mean, I don't like the percentage. The 1.5% as a standard is kind of silly to me.
Yeah.
But, you know, $1,000, $500, $1,500, some number in that realm will help. Now, if you find out it's $4,000 to replace that, then the buyer can pay the difference and keep the contract, or the seller can pay the difference and keep the contract in full force and effect.
Right.
I personally hold a belief that most sellers are good intentioned, right? It's their house. If they knew that the plumbing pipe sewer line to the street was collapsing, they would probably fix it. But they didn't know because they lived in the house for 25 years and their shit flows just fine. Right. But now it's revealed that this pipe is corroded and it's leaking in the yard and this is a problem. Most people are good natured enough to, I didn't know, I'll fix that for you. In an as is contract, sorry, ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, because typically what happens, I've never really had a seller, even in a regular contract, we've sent over the repairs. Usually at that point, you're already 2.5 weeks into the contract. A seller usually isn't going to bulk for a few $100s over repair limits not to fix something that is not visible. All right. In other words, you pull off the electric panel and there's a bunch of taps, or the AC is not working. I mean, not things that you could see when you were actually buying the house, but actually things that were hidden because of the mechanical nature of it. So I've never really had that problem. Global home warranty is a safety stuff for mechanical ECHT, given good.
Yeah, I'm going to address that one in a second, but Jan wrote, if the buyer is obligated, wouldn't it be likely they pull out of the contract? Well, on the as is, absolutely, no question.
Mm-hmm.
I can cancel on an as is for no reason. On a regular contract, the seller can say, oh, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry, I'll fix it. And then they can't cancel.
Right.
It just gives you more options.
Yeah.
Global home warranty is a safety stop for mechanicals. Yeah. Somebody wrote up here, does the home warranty cover plumbing issues? And the answer is yes, if they're not known. Mm-hmm. So the key to me with a home warranty, which I recommend a home warranty on every contract, but I recommend that you buy the home inspection addendum. Because if after the time of sale, the plumbing is working, and then the plumbing breaks after closing, then it's covered.
Right.
But if you don't have the home inspection contingency, then there's no way to prove it wasn't a pre-existing condition, in which case the home warranty won't do it. It's just like a car warranty. You're not going to spend $400 and get a $5,000 repair, right? Mm-hmm. Unless it's legit. And how do you prove it's legit? And the reason I like Global Home USA is that they've got that home protection plan. So if on the home warranty, home inspection, it was working, then it's covered. Period. If it wasn't working on the home warranty, it's not going to be covered. I'm sorry, right? It's a pre-existing condition. So right. You're going to get a $400, $500, $600 policy to pay for a $10,000 repair because they wouldn't be in business. Lots of chat. If the seller doesn't want to fix in the regular contract, can buyer back out at that point? Yes. Either party can cancel or either party can pay the difference. Very, very important language.
If it exceeds the repair limits, yes.
So the repair limit's $100, and the repair is $300. And the buyer says, screw you, I ain't fixing it, I'm canceling. The seller says, screw you, here's $200, you're staying in the deal. Right? I mean, that's what happens in the regular contract. In an as-is contract, I'm walking, and there's no opportunity to negotiate. Or the seller has a backup contract for more money, and the buyer wants a $300 repair, and there's a $100 limit, and the seller really is not attached to the outcome. No, I'm not fixing anything more than $100. I'm only obligated for $100. If you don't like it, cancel, and I'll take the backup offer that I have for more money. So it plays both sides of the fence and gives a little bit of power to each buyer, or each party rather than buyer. I like it. This is good conversations.
Can you scroll down a little bit?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
So
there we go.
Inspections.
Well, I want to talk a little bit. Make sure that you do your WDO inspections the same time you're doing your regular inspections to stay in contract. But the thing I like about the regular FAR/BAR contract is it really does define that things are in working condition versus cosmetic, and the things that are cosmetic. The regular contract really spells out, certain things about roofs and cracks and stuff like that are not necessarily have to be fixed. They're cosmetic in nature, where the as-is contract, that buyer can go, I don't like that little crack here and a little crack there. And my God, we live in Florida. We have cracks everywhere. So the regular contract really defines what the seller is obligated to repair instead of a wish list on the buyer's part on the as is.
And there's just a lot of little things that pop up.
Right. Like, you know, hey, you all of a sudden you find an open permit. And, you know, for me if I'm the buyer agent, it's a lot simpler for me to call the listing agent, say, there's an open permit, I need you to get that closed. As opposed to, we found an open permit, now I have to, if I'm using an as-is contract, I have to figure out how to get it closed for the buyer. So it puts more work on me as a buyer agent using an as-is contract if you all of a sudden start with open permits and things like that.
Well, for the benefit of the audience, what does it take to get an open permit closed?
It depends on what it is. Okay, so let's just say it's a AC unit that's 5 years old or 3 years old. Now you have to call the AC company that did the work. So you have to find that out from the seller and call them, and hopefully they're still in business, and they have to go and reopen the permit, pay the fees, and get it closed.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to do all that within a certain period of time. Okay, because you got to close. So you know, and you might only have 2 weeks to do that, and now you're working with the county officials to get things closed in a period of time during a pandemic, which some of them aren't even working at home. They're at their own home. They're in the building. They're working at home. So it really can be rather. Now, they did pass a law if the permit is over a certain number of years, and I can't remember what that number is off the top of my head, but you can just call the county and they'll close that permit for you. But if it's a recent permit, no. And there are a lot of people that get work done. I'll get a new air conditioner. How many of us go and look online to see if they actually closed the permit? You know, so you find that out when you go to sell your house that, you know, your AC guy didn't close out the permit.
Well, when this contract changed a couple of years ago, we studied this, and I came to the house. I went and looked at my own house, and my pool builder never closed out my permit.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like 15 years after the fact. Well, he died. So I had to go and hire an engineer.
Right.
Who had to come out and certify that my pool was done properly. Cost me $750.
Right.
Then I take that letter to the county, pay $25, and get the permit closed.
Yeah.
But it wasn't hard. It was just a pain in the ass.
Yeah, because and you had to pay money, which basically was paid. You paid when the pool went in. You paid him for permits and to do all that stuff. So, and the county never came and closed out the permit, you know, to close it, inspect it, because that's what closing the permit is. They're doing the final inspection and closing out the permit.
Yeah, and that's what it, you know, I paid for it. He just never did it.
Right. So you paid. Yeah. So
the COVID, getting an appointment in the building permit office is difficult. It is. Mom, you need to check and make sure Code Engineering closed out your roofing permit just for fun, because we know they're still in business. Regina, or sometimes it's just a phone call. Yeah, sometimes you get lucky and the county says, "Oh, no problem, we'll just do it for you."
Yeah.
But it's just another step in the process.
Oh yeah.
The plan, I think, is $700. But you can also buy the dumbed down simple plan. And this is, if I was a listing agent, I would offer the cheap warranty.
Yeah.
And I would tell the buyer, you're really smart to pay for the home inspection upgrade addendum. And it's like $125 on top of that.
Right.
What you really want though is the home inspection addendum added to the simple plan.
Right. Right. Then we go, that's closed out. Walkthrough inspection are basically the same thing in both contracts. The day before, day of closing. And I like using this sometime when I've got if I have a listing, I have a buyer who wants to go in the house every 3 days after they bought the house to do things. And basically after they do their inspection period, they don't need to go back in the house until the day before closing or the day of closing to do their final walkthrough. So, you know, today, if a house is empty, you don't really care. But if you have a seller who's trying to pack and get ready to go, you know, I've used this part of the contract to say, hey, the seller's just like, no.
Well,
They're
the house
paying.
was vacant.
What's that?
The house I just bought was vacant. I didn't even do a walkthrough inspection.
Yeah, yeah.
The walkthrough, I mean, when the movers come and take out all the stuff, when they bang the walls and hit the door jams and
Right.
drywall, that's what you really care about.
And that they left the refrigerator, they said they were going to leave, and and it's the same refrigerator that when you did your inspection. I mean, I had one not about 2 years ago where they came in and switched out the refrigerator. Yeah, it was fun.
Those things do happen.
Yes, they do. That's why we take pictures. So, okay, and. Okay, so the sellers have to assist in cooperating in the as-is contract to close the permits if there's anything, but they're not obligated to spend any money to close anything. Where in the regular contract, it is up to the seller to close all those permits. So we talked about that. And this is the repair standards. Now, we gotta go, Craig. There you go. The repair standards basically in the regular contract says everything has to be done by a licensed contractor, as is contract, unless you specify in your repair addendum that seller can use Uncle Joe if he wants to fix anything. It's not necessarily a licensed contractor.
Well, no, the concept there is the as-is contract, the seller has no obligation to do any repairs, so there's no
That's
need
right.
to limit who they can use or can't use because they're not supposed to do any.
Correct.
Now, in practice, agents are using the as-is contract and asking for repairs, and I wish y'all would stand up. The hair on the back of your neck should go up and say, slap, asshole. It's an as-is contract. We're not doing any repairs. I'm canceling your contract because you were stupid.
Yeah.
That's what I wish people would do, but they don't because everybody's attached to the outcome. And it drives me crazy. That's why let me show you this while we're on it.
Okay. We're done. We kind of went through everything.
Oh, I happen to be in .loop. Go figure. I'm in .loop all day long.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
So I'm going to go to templates. I'm going to go to contracts. I'm going to find an as-is or a regular. Doesn't matter.
There you go.
And I'm going to come down to additional terms. And here, oh, it's not, I didn't create a loop, so it's not going to open.
You pull it down in that, yeah.
I go to clauses. Give me a second.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird thing that you have to do to create a loop to do that, but.
And I got some thing blocking me. What's my personal loop? I'll put it in there.
Sandra, yes, we'll get you a copy of that. I'll go in and proofread it. I was proofreading while we were going on. That's what happens when you work on a little laptop. We'll send it. I'll send a corrected copy to Craig. Is that helpful, Sandra? I guess.
Add to loop.
Okay, good.
Come on. Anyway, where's the template button, Joe? Come on. It says,
what do you look? I wasn't paying attention. I was watching the comments.
The additional terms, the template. It says this. I got to insert a clause, but it's not letting me do it because I don't have it set up properly.
Yeah, I don't have .loop open. It basically, let's see. Can I get to it? Hold on.
clauses. Somebody just texted me while I was on my desk.
Can you go back? Can you go back to back over here and get out and create a loop?
Yeah, let me just go to.
Go up to loops. Yeah.
I'll just find a loop that has a contract in it. I just don't want to undo anybody's work. Here, this is mine. I can't mess with that. Now, this is important too. So this is a house I just bought, Rainbridge Drive in Riverview. My insurance agent I paid for the insurance. So I put the insurance receipt in the loop. I'm using this as my personal filing folder. My updated HO homeowners insurance, here's the survey. Anything I got after closing, I just threw into the loop. I made it a PDF and I threw it into the loop. So all my stuff is right there.
I put everything in, inspections, everything goes, everything in there.
I actually need to spend more time and actually do that.
I probably drive Samantha nuts because she's got to sort through all the junk that I throw in there.
They actually do that.
I know. Sorry, Sam. But you know, it's a good way to keep track. I mean, it's just a great way to keep track of it. Putting the 4-point everything in there. There you go. Can you get to it?
Oh, it's not letting me go in. Ah, gosh, how do I show you what I want to show you? Print, download, split document. Flight temperature, all grayed out. It was done. Anyway, when you're starting a new loop, that's what I guess I can go do.
Yeah, just start a. I think we had to do it that way the last time we did it. We had to start a new loop. Yeah.
P, D, Q, continue. Loop template, residential, no, I don't want listing, sorry, not money contract.
You want contract. Up as is, either one. Done.
Now all the required forms are here. Purchase,
View loop.
It's going to put all the required documents in there for me, which is yay. And I want to look at the as-is residential contract because I'm going to write one. And there we go. I'm going to skip for now. And I'm going to go down to the additional terms.
There we go.
Guys, use this clause. If you are the listing agent and somebody submits to you an as-is contract, add in here, it'll say field history, add a clause. Transaction fee, you of course want that because we want to charge it. Buyer only, transaction fee is fine. This one, boom, add. Buyer acknowledges that buyer's home inspection and inspection period is for buyer's informational purposes only. Any request for repairs, compensation, or price adjustment shall be considered a reopening of negotiations, and seller reserves the right to cancel this contract. And I love that clause. Use it. Put it into your, if XYZ, we just had a deal. Michael Simpkins is a pushy agent, and he tied up one of our listings and then canceled it 4 days afterwards because the new house came on the market and he sold it to his buyers. And they use, this negotiation clause to get out of the contract. That clause is powerful. In Miami, this is where my mom's cousin is an agent in Miami, and they use as-is contracts in Miami a lot, and they try to get out of them asking for repairs. So this just takes it right out of there. Hey, you can do an inspection, and any repairs you get, you're going to reopen negotiations. We're going to cancel you. Because had I known that you were going to ask for inspection results or repairs, I would not have accepted this price.
But you know what that does, Craig? It makes the buyer agent have the conversation with them what the as-is contract is, because oftentimes they don't explain to them that this contract doesn't cover repairs. and they don't explain that. And then the buyer wants repairs after the inspection, and they don't have the guts to say, oh, well, this was an as-is contract.
Pamela said, if we have an FHA or VA buyer, some of the things have to be repaired. Well,
Yeah.
they're in the FHA VA addendum, and the addendum overrides the purchase and sale contract. So make sure that when you're talking to your seller that this is an as-is contract, but it's VA, the VA rider is going to override the contract, and the seller is going to be obligated to fix those items, like termites, right?
Right. Termite's going to be required in the VA, but you got to be careful because you have to make sure that in the clause for that VA, there's a clause at the top for VA and FHA that you put in a dollar amount. That's if the appraiser calls it out. In other words, the appraiser goes, there's a cracked window, and we have to have that fixed. So, and I don't really, some of the appraisers don't really call very much out. So, but yes, termites got to get fixed. Any electrical issues?
John saying, when representing a buyer in this market, when using an as-is contract, and we're asking for repairs, our state seller or seller's representative, it helps keeping, I don't understand what you're saying, John. If you're using an as-is contract, your buyer has the right to walk under any circumstances, period.
Within that 10 days. Yep. Or whatever you picked. Yep. And he doesn't owe them an explanation. All you have to do is send over the cancellation.
But anyway, this clause I think is powerful. I would insert it into the counter offer that you get as a listing agent with an as-is contract. Buyer acknowledges that buyer's home inspection and inspection period is for buyer's informational purposes only. Any request for repairs, compensation, or price adjustment shall be considered reopened negotiation, and the seller reserves the right to cancel this contract. That just tells them right there. Now, anything added to a contract overrides anything else. So this clause was particularly written just for that.
Yep. That's correct. All righty.
Okay. Well, I think we've done a nice job.
We did a good job today. Do we have any other questions?
We had a lot of interaction today.
A bunch of them. Yeah, in the chat.
So we just opened up. Buyer allows seller or seller's rep to repair minor repairs less expensively than on cab tractor contractor, I think it means. Yeah, the parties can agree on whatever they want, but the as-is contract does not address repairs because there's no repairs because it's an as-is contract. The regular contract addresses repairs by licensed contractor.
Yeah, just remember, if the seller lets the buyer to start making, and for some reason that contract falls apart, that buyer's out that money.
Yeah, they got skin in the game a little bit, a couple $100 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
But they might also made a loan application, an appraisal order, and if it gets to that point. And quite honestly, I would start vetting my buyers if in multiple offer situation. Have you made a loan application yet? Have you paid for your appraisal fee? How dedicated are you to buying a house? Because I got 14 I'm choosing from. Which one's going to be better for me? So.
I think the other big question to ask right now too, has the lender explained to you how much money you need for closing cost? Because buyers aren't getting closing costs in this market, so it's a way of opening up to that buyer to find out what their finances are and do they have money for closing costs, because some of them, they're getting pre-approved, but they don't have, they especially VA, they think they don't have to have any money down, and they don't understand they have to put a deposit and they've got to have closing costs, and it's really tough right now for buyers in that realm.
Really tough for buyers right now.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be super strong with them. I mean, if I was an FHA buyer and I had $10,000 in my account, I would put $10,000 down and just get it back at closing, just to give because the cash buyers beat everybody out.
Right.
And if you're not having this conversation with the buyer, you're doing them a disservice.
Yeah.
Because a finance buyer is at a major disadvantage in this market, period.
You got to set the expectation with them and tell them what the market, we got to educate them. Otherwise, they think you're doing something wrong and you don't want that. So you want to explain to them. And, you know, if they don't have any closing cost money, you know, this probably isn't the market, or you get them to new construction where they're going to get a lot of it paid, and, you know, and hopefully they have some of it. You know, even the new construction, oh yeah, we're going to give you $10,000, but they don't tell them closing cost is 15. You know, so, you know, the buyer still needs money. It's not going to be that easy. So again,
number one, I believe, I'll be bold here, it's irresponsible for you as a listing agent to accept an offer from a buyer without having spoken verbal communication to their listing agent or their mortgage broker. Totally irresponsible for you to do that, because there's too many in these online agencies, the Rocket Mortgages, all that shit. BS. I want a personal loan officer who knows what's going on.
And you know what, if that means we don't, you know, we have offers on a Saturday and Sunday and we can't really get to loan officers until Monday, guess what? They'll wait till Monday. You know, it's one day is not going to make a bit of difference, but you're going to talk to that loan officer or call the buyer agent and say, I need to talk to your loan officer, have him give me a call because I can't reach him.
Right.
So, yeah.
Pamela asked, if we have an FHA or VA buyer, some things have to be repaired if both parties want to continue with the deal. Is that correct? And I answered this earlier. You said the sound went out. Yes, any addendum overrides the pre-printed contract.
Right.
So if the FHA addendum says something, it has to be repaired to be qualified for the FHA guarantee of mortgage, then yes, it has to be repaired. So you better make sure your seller knows that.
Right.
Because it's not necessarily an asset.
Yeah. You have to explain the contract to your sellers when you're gone. You know, you should go over it with them, what their obligations are.
Guys, it's a tough time.
Yeah.
This is a harder time now than it ever has been before. But when you take these little hacks we're giving you and you use them, you'll find that you'll get more wins than loses, right? We know how it works. Take our advice and let's do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Craig. Thank you, Craig. It was a great morning. I think we covered a lot.
We did. So someone come out. Anyway, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Thank you.
Thanks.